So partly about what's been grouped to meet and stuff, right?
What am I sharing my screen to?
You can just share it right like that within the meeting itself. And
It'll
it'll still
Oh, perfect.
it'll still show there.
Okay, great.
We test so much.
Okay. Do you want me to be sharing it when we start, or do you want it?
No, let's just go ahead and get started because it's not live streaming now. So
Okay,
here
yeah.
we go.
All right.
All right. Well, hello and good evening. And my sincerest apologies to people who are watching this as a recording, that we had technical difficulties to be able to broadcast this live. We therefore are recording this special evening together so that we can send it out to everybody after the lecture concludes. That said, my name is Vered Harris. I'm the rabbi here at Temple B'nai Israel, and it is my honor to welcome our special guests, to welcome our guests from the community, from Oklahoma City University, and from the Temple to this special Neustadt Lecture, the third of the series today. Walter and Dolores Neustadt of Ardmore, Oklahoma, established the Neustadt Lectures at Oklahoma City University in 1983 for the purpose of strengthening understanding of the great contributions of the Judaic religious tradition to Western civilization and thought. It has been an honor over the last almost 10 years now to attend various Neustadt lectures and to learn from the great scholars that Oklahoma City University brings into Oklahoma City for us, particularly under the coordination and guidance of Dr. Lisa Wolf. This evening, we have a wonderful lecturer that we've been learning from all day, Dr. Kristine Henriksen Garroway. Dr. Garroway has been at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion's Skirball campus in Los Angeles since 2011, serving as visiting assistant professor of Bible. Dr. Garroway received her doctorate in Hebrew Bible and Cognate Studies at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion, Cincinnati campus in 2009. She spent time studying and researching in Israel and has participated in excavations in Ashkelon, Tel Dor, and Tel Dan. Garroway's scholarship focuses on children. She's a leader in the new methodology of childist biblical interpretation, innovating, developing, and fostering the use of archaeology and texts to reveal the previously hidden children of ancient Israel and Mesopotamia. Dr. Garroway has published in various scholarly journals and is a regular contributor to thetorah.com. Garroway's most recent book is Children and Methods, Listening to and Learning from Children in the Biblical World, co-edited with John W. Martins. Dr. Wolf and her students have been reading and discussing one of Garroway's articles in that book just this very week, and were fascinated by her insights. The book, Growing Up in Ancient Israel, Children in Material Culture and Biblical Texts, received Biblical Archaeological Society's 2019 Publication Award for Best Book Relating to the Hebrew Bible. Other publications include Children in the Ancient Near Eastern Household, and Dr. Garroway's next book will be The Cult of the Child, the Death and Burial of Children in Ancient Israel. Dr. Garroway, thank you so much for your patience this evening and your understanding. We are very excited to learn from you tonight, finally.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. All right, if you all
are also live streaming.
Oh.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. All righty.
Well, then we'll just go with that.
Okay, I'm just going to keep this as it is, and I'm going to keep going. Hello, everybody out there in live stream world.
And I think you need to move the camera up a wee bit.
Okay, just a second. Let's share this.
This will be the microphone, and I guess that goes to the live stream.
All right. Can you all hear me? Okay. Things that go bump in the night. Ancient texts of dangerous children. The ancient Near East was inhabited by demons and infants, two groups that do not mix well. One group was desired, the other not. Children were not just desired, they were highly desired, a sentiment that is witnessed by the extremes to which couples would go if they could not easily conceive. Barren women prayed and made vows. Infertile women might also turn to special fertility-inducing plants, like mandrakes, as well as recipes calling for plants and animals to be crushed, combined, and inserted into the vagina. Couples might use a surrogate womb or adopt a child. In what seems like a cruel twist of fate, almost as soon as this much desired child was born, its life was put in danger. Various maladies, diseases, sudden infant death syndrome, and non-hygienic conditions could lead to harmful situations. Even simple things like the inability to latch and suckle could put an infant's life in peril. While the cause of diseases and illnesses are understood scientifically today, in the ancient world, the cause of these infant deaths was often attributed to the divine realm and seen as the acts of demons. The terrifying story of a destroyer who enters the house to kill the firstborn child in Exodus 12, or a mythology that includes baby-snatching demons who preyed on the young, sufficed as explanations for why children died. So how did the ancient Israelite families keep their infants safe? With harmful forces roving about, families employed a variety of methods to keep their children safe from things that go bump in the night. Excavations in the Levant have uncovered a wide range of amulets and protective figurines meant to counteract evils and protect children from harm. Amulets, whether inscribed or not, made of stone, ceramic, or metal, all were thought to keep the evil forces at bay. They protected the wearer or the area in which they were placed. Amulets, with and without writing, are found in excavations throughout the southern Levant. Beth, a minor Egyptian deity, was quite popular in the ancient Iron Age II period, and amulets depicting him were found at major sites. That's Beth. He is a protector of pregnant women, small children, and children's beds. A grotesque-looking fellow, he is shown with his legs akimbo, a beard, and a tail. The fearsome posture, along with the scowling face, was meant to scare danger away. Pazazu was another popular foreign figure. Unlike Beth, Pazazu was a demon who hails from Mesopotamia. Amulets of Pazazu's head portray the demon with a canine or leonine head, which has oversized eyes and horns. Pazazu amulets are found in ancient Israel, again during the Iron Age II period. Protective eyes, like the Egyptian wedget eye or Eye of Horus, are other amulets found peppered across the ancient Near Eastern landscape. Within ancient Israel, they were found in Iron Age Jericho, Gezer, Gerar, and Beersheba. As sympathetic magic, these could keep one safe from the evil eye, an entity known across the ancient Near East, from Egypt to Ugarit to Mesopotamia. When directed at a person, the evil eye can cause much harm. It is said to, quote, devour flesh and guzzle blood, unquote. Some evil eye texts are specifically related to infants and women in labor. One text describes the eye as swooping into a room and causing discord, perhaps crying, among infants and strangling babies. Ethnographic studies from the 1930s, conducted in the village of Artas, just outside of Bethlehem, found fear of the evil eye was still prevalent. New things like newborns are particularly prone to the force of the evil eye. Parents in the village attached shiny objects to the swaddling clothes so that the intent of the eye might bounce off the reflection and leave the child unharmed. Metal jewelry and metal objects that create light were also used to protect ancient Israelite children. Job 29:3 and Proverbs 6:20 through 23 describe the divine protection in the form of light. The physical form of this divine protection are the ubiquitous clay oil lamps found in excavations of burials, houses, and public buildings. Most metal amulets are uninscribed, meaning it is the power imbued in the object itself that was embraced to protect the wearer. However, at the burial site of Kitef Hinnom near Jerusalem, it proves that written amulets were also used. The burials there belonged to the elite, and 2 amulets found were inscribed in silver. The shiny property of the silver, along with the words of the blessing, were meant to protect the wearer. For those of you who are savvy and can read Hebrew, you will see that this is the priestly blessing that was found on these 2 amulets. Because the amulets, oh, it's also in English on the slide. For those of you who can read English, you can also read that. It's the priestly blessing. Y'all thought you were smart because you could read it. Because the amulets were found in a repository of grave goods, they cannot be directly linked to children. Yet, as Professor Jeremy Smoke has keenly observed, the small size of one of the amulets might indicate that it was meant for a child. With infants in particular, malevolent forces were alerted to the presence of a potential victim by the sound of crying. Thus, keeping an infant quiet was paramount to the child's survival. But how did families accomplish this feat? How did they quiet infants? Mesopotamian incantation texts allude to a tradition of lullabies. These texts were specifically meant to ward off the demoness Lamashtu while quieting infants, not demons. The texts of the lullabies and incantations provide a window into the thoughts and rationale of parents trying to keep their infants safe and quiet. The link between the problem, demons attracted to crying, and the solution, incantation or lullaby to soothe the infant and ward off evil, here is clearly made. Little one, who dwelt in the house of darkness, well, you are outside now. You have seen the light of sun. Why are you crying? Why are you yelling? Why didn't you cry in there? You have roused the God of the house. The Kirkasukum has woken up. Who roused me? Who startled me? The little one has roused you. The little one has startled you. As unto drinkers of wine, as unto tipplers, may sleep fall on him. Yes, they were wishing their infant would pass out drunk. Presumably, infants in the ancient Israel also cried, yet the material record lacks similar incantations and lullabies. The amulets found throughout ancient Israel attest to the belief that evil forces were thought to be afoot. So how did families in ancient Israel keep their infants safe and quiet? Did they too use unwritten lullabies? Were amulets enough? The archaeological remains provide another possible method: rattles. Rattles have been found throughout the ancient Near East, from Mesopotamia through the Levant and down into Egypt. Rattles are classified as idiophones, self-sounding instruments. In Egypt and Mesopotamia, closed-form rattles are made of natural substances like a gourd or clay. They are filled with pebbles or seeds to create a rattling noise. In addition to closed-form rattles, small animal-shaped rattles have been found in Mesopotamia. The more popular type of rattling instrument in these areas, however, is the sistrum. Sistra are found referenced in multiple contexts, from funerary rites to secular music performances, ritual performances to votive offerings. Most notably, in the Egyptian story of Sinuhe, sistra are played by children where they rattle them to quell the god's anger. While we know rattles are used in contemporary society to soothe and entertain children, did rattles function the same way in the ancient world? Because we have little direct information regarding rattles, the extant corpus of text, known rituals, and iconographic images from ancient Israel does not include reference to rattles or their use. Therefore, indirect information becomes important. For example, Many anthropological studies have demonstrated that rattles and other noisemakers are commonly used to ward off evil. Consider the Greco-Roman magic corpus, which includes a text written in the shape of a bell. When spoken, the text was to be accompanied by a ringing sound. The sound of a bell or a rattle is chaotic, unorganized, disorienting, meant to scare off evil. So too, the Roman crependia were amulets strung together like charm bracelets, and when stored in a box, they also made a chaotic rattling noise, which was thought to enrich their apopatreic qualities. Boxes such as these have been found in infant and child burials containing amber, bone, bells, best amulets, and so forth. I researched over 50 closed form ceramic rattles specifically found in ancient Israel. The rattles come from the late Bronze and Iron Age contexts. The rattles in question are described in the literature as barrel-shaped, but in layman's terms, we might best describe these as a large ceramic spool for thread. About their location, about half the rattles I investigated were found in a burial context. The burial contexts of the rattles are unfortunately not so helpful. Many rattles come from repositories in family tombs or are found mentioned in a list or in images from tomb contexts. Therefore, we can't associate them with a specific body. In addition, the skeletal remains are too fragmented to determine if any rattles were specifically deposited with children. It is not to say that rattles were not necessarily associated with children, just simply that the data is inconclusive. The other rattles are located in areas defined as domestic, public areas, cultic, or areas of unknown use, my favorite category. Those in domestic locations are listed as found on floors, cisterns, courtyard storage area, and rooms. Those found in public areas include the gates, public buildings, and stone pavements. While a detailed spatial analysis is outside the limits of this evening's talk, this brief overview does demonstrate that these rattles were not simply one thing. They were not used in a single space. They were found spread across sites from areas used by the living to those areas inhabited by the dead, from private space to public space. In light of anthropological studies, it is surprising that the literature on the ancient Near East has not thought more broadly about the role of rattles as related to children. Reasons for a narrow view of the closed form rattles seems to stem from a few related reasons. Early scholarship did not consider the world of the child or the role of children in the ancient household when interpreting the archaeological remains. This scholarship was also limited by the extant number of rattles. Unfortunately, not all, but many subsequent references to rattles simply cite the older sources which discount any relationship between children and rattles. Scholars noted that the Levantine closed form rattles would be too large for an infant to handle. While size is a reasonable concern, an adult or older child could shake a rattle for an infant or young child. Native ceramic material, the older sources comment that most rattles were found whole. This suggested to scholars that rattles would not be used by children because children would drop and break them. However, durability is a modern standard. Most extant ceramic rattles are whole because they were found in an environment that protected them. They were found in tombs. Yet the fact that broken rattles, which were overlooked by early scholarship, were also found in locations outside of tombs means that they were not limited to funerary practices. Made of ceramic materials, rattles could be replaced if broken. It might well be that these closed form rattles were discarded when they broke. The reasons for disassociating rattles with children, therefore, are unfounded. Bearing in mind all the methods used to keep infants safe in the ancient world, shaking a rattle as a means of both shushing the child and protecting it seems logical. Percussive noises are known to be an effective means of calming infants in the contemporary world. Perhaps rattles too were an effective method of quieting ancient infants. The associated quiet affected by the noise of the rattle could then allow the rattle to acquire an apopatreic function as well, as evil forces were frightened away by the noise. The Passover narrative found in Exodus 12 tells of an evil to rival that of the demoness Lamashtu. On the appointed night of the year, a demon, the Mashchit, would sneak through the towns of Egypt, seeking to kill the firstborn children in the house. Only those who properly protected the infant would let them survive. Protection in this narrative takes place through the ritual slaughter of an animal, whose blood is then used to paint the doorframe. The bloody doorframe functions as an apopatreic symbol to ward off the evil. Scholars have connected this rite of the Passover narrative both to Mesopotamia and Egypt and the Levant. Those seeking a Mesopotamian background point to Lamashtu sending out her evil eye before her to seek out houses with infants. It has also been suggested that the ritual was a common Levantine one adopted by semi-nomadic herders and connected with the yearly movement of herds from winter to summer pastures. Sacrificing one from the flock to protect the rest was a way to appease the evil beings that sought harm to the newborn infants while they moved pastures. Professor Thomas Schneider has proposed similarities between this 10th plague and the different Egyptian protection rituals. He notes that some rituals, dating back to the Middle and New Kingdoms of Egypt, protect mothers and newborns against the plague that occurred when the Nile was inundated. Other rituals, such as the protection of the house or ritual for the bedroom of the palace, are meant to protect the king. In these rituals, various smelly substances are rubbed on the windows and doors of the palace, especially during the night of the new year. In each of these proposals, there is a link to a being, often a child, either a human child or an animal, that needs protection. Whatever the background of the Passover story might have been, whether its date is early or late, it seems to reflect a fear that infants, especially firstborn infants, would die by the hand of a malevolent being. While it is impossible to know how widespread this practice was, or indeed if it was done at all, it is significant that the Passover narrative, particularly the 10th plague, was codified and then transformed by the rabbis into the Passover Seder, itself an adaptation not of a Mesopotamian, Levantine, or Egyptian ritual, but of a Greco-Roman symposium. The recitation of the words to children in Exodus 12:25 and 26 became itself a protection ritual. When you enter the land that the Lord will give you, as the Lord promised, observe this ceremony. And when your children ask you, what does this ceremony mean to you? Then tell them, it is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord, who passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt and spared our homes when the Lord struck down the Egyptians. In the same way that the great epics of Homer were chanted, one imagines the oral traditions of the Torah being passed down through song or chant. As studies have demonstrated, it is easier to remember lengthy texts if they are put to music. Who knows? Maybe the recitation of the Passover narrative at one point took the form of a lullaby or a chant, accompanied by the apopatreic shake of a rattle, just for good measure. Gratuitous picture of my now 13-year-old. Hi, if you're watching us. So, in conclusion, I began with the question, how did parents keep their infants safe and quiet from the nefarious spirits that inhabited ancient Israel? Childhood death was common, and the infant mortality rate was high. The much desired child was also a very vulnerable child. Excavations of cities, villages, and burial sites are peppered with magical religious items meant to keep children safe. Amulets, shiny metal jewelry, lamps, incantations, lullabies, and rattles are all physical manifestations of parental efforts to protect their children. Like with rattles, we might understand these items to be used not one at a time, but in concert with each other. Without narratives or diaries explaining how mothers and family members cared for infants, we must rely on what we know from human experiences. When it comes to calming an infant, parents combine multiple soothing methods. It is almost comical to think of a parent inserting a pacifier, then stepping back to critically observe if that single action stops crying. Parents do not simply pick up a fussy infant. They also bounce, sway, walk around, talk, hum, sing, or make shushing noises. If human experience is not convincing, we can also draw upon anthropological and scientific studies that demonstrate a multiplicity of soothing actions produces the best results. Focusing on questions such as these, thinking about how parents keep their infants safe and quiet, has also highlights how studying children can provide new insights into the social world of ancient Israel. This is one of the goals of a newer field called childist interpretation. This field reassesses the impact of young individuals from bygone eras in shaping the material record, an impact that has for a long time gone unnoticed or underappreciated. Revisiting artifacts with an eye to children rather than adults opens up a new set of possibilities for how objects may have been used. Shiny jewelry or metal pieces are not discarded items strewn haphazardly across ancient house floors. They are items imbued with powers to counteract evil forces. Inscribed amulets may have been for children of wealthy families as well as their parents. And rattles, long discounted as toys and therefore disassociated from children, are re-envisioned as items used for children rather than by children. The benefit of rereading the ancient world with children in mind extends beyond simply rethinking how artifacts functioned. Such a reading also influences the way we connect with the past. Quote, interpretations of ancient materials can have a significant impact on living, breathing children and adults and how they are understood as a people of worth in communities today, unquote, from Bettesworth and Parker. Ancient Israel is a world far removed in time and space from our own contemporary society. Yet, as the above analysis has shown, there are similarities in both societies and how both societies understand children. They are loved, cherished, and valued. At the same time, children are weak, vulnerable, and in need of protection. Caregivers today, like those in ancient times, do whatever they can to keep their children safe and shielded them from the unseen dangers that might harm them. In this way, the past is not so distant and the people that inhabited it not so foreign. Thank you.
I know that we can take a moment and first of all, take a moment to say thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. So the babies, your babies?
My babies.
I love seeing that. It's a way to bring them with you on the road. Right. So fun. Dr. Garroway has agreed to take questions. If we have any questions, we do have on the screen there a phone number that you're able to text questions to if you would like, or if we have questions for those who are with us in the sanctuary tonight. And if we do, let me know. I'm going to come down and bring you a microphone. And also check this. The announcement for questions has not quite come up yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not playing on my phone. I was looking at the slides. I was watching the slides as we went along.
Yeah. But the households were different in those days. The children didn't the children kind of like live with the mothers in a separate enclave, where were the father, I mean, I think about today, you know, mama and papa and the kids, but it wasn't quite like that then, was it?
Well, from what we know of ancient households, children would have stayed with the mothers until, well, both genders of children, as understood in the ancient world, would have stayed with the mothers until around the age of 5 to 7, at which point boys would go off with the fathers during the day to do whatever the fathers did. Well, the girls would stay at home and learn what they needed to learn to do household work. So it's not that they were necessarily, it wasn't like the women's quarter and the men's quarter. It was more that we had domestic work happening at the house in semi-agricultural societies, and then men would be in the fields doing the field labor and then come back at night.
Sure, I'll ask the question. So I kind of wanted to unpack your last slide a little bit more. Is that suggested the way that we use contemporary baby advice and objects could be compared to the way the ancient peoples also used those, just that scholars identify those ancient objects in different ways as amulets or as keeping away evil with a noise or something like that. And we think of it in sort of a different mindset. And it just sort of is striking me how that could be possible with so many ways that we think about artifacts. So maybe I'm just restating what you said, but I'm just sort of struck by that. And also just was curious about, you had mentioned that there were broken rattles that were found. Do you feel like there's pretty good documentation of that, or did that some of the evidence may have just been lost because people didn't know what they were seeing?
Yeah, a lot of the rattles that I found that were whole, this is back to investigative journaling, that were found in tombs. And then these rattles get upheld as the prime example that all rattles are found in tombs and they have a funerary function. Why? Because they're found in tombs, clearly. And then sometimes cross-referenced with Greco-Roman or the classics, which show rattles being used with tomb processions. But of course, that's, you know, many, many, many centuries later and in a different part of the world. And so then newer excavation reports, when they find a rattle, just cite the old reports saying this is how they were used. And so when newer reports started to find them broken or in the house, there, at least as far as I have found, hasn't been a big effort to try and reinterpret them. Rather, it's just like, here's a rattle that was broken, end of story. And oftentimes things that are found and kept are those whole items, which are the, you know, the big shiny glossy woo, whereas the broken ones, it's like, all right, broken. So if they were found, they're either just, sometimes you find them in a catalog at the end of miscellaneous things. And there's not a whole lot of attention that, as far as I know, has been given to them. But when I started to look for them and to look in these places, and then I would have to look, so in archaeological excavation report, lists the square and things that were found in the square. And then sometimes they give images of the things. And then in the back, they'll give like chapters that just list the locus and the find. So you have to do a lot of cross-referencing to find them. And when I started to do that work and to plot them, I said to myself, well, wait a minute, they're in a lot of areas. And then I would take and I would look for amulets and cross-reference those and be like, wait a minute, they're all in the same areas. So maybe they're in the same context that are trying to do the same sort of thing.
So, I mean, could the, couldn't it just get identified as a potsherd, a part of a rattle, or is there something distinctive about a broken rattle that would let you know what's inside of it?
So these, I put them back up on the screen. They're pretty big. They're,
Oh,
and they don't, if they were broken, would not immediately look like a bowl or a storage jar or something. They would look different.
oh,
So it should alert someone that it's something interesting, but not that it always did. A couple of these, they did scans and found pebbles inside, like 2 or 3 pebbles that make the noise. But it's unclear to me whether the pebbles were put in post-production or as part of the production. I'm not sure.
oh, I see. Like they could have stuck the pebbles in through the holes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Could they have been musical instruments?
They could be, yeah. That's when they say that they were used in funerary contexts, they think that it's some sort of musical celebration or something, right? So they could be musical instruments, and in fact, if you were using them as lullabies, along with lullabies and shaking, they can have overlapping uses. And so it could be a musical instrument while at the same time the noise that the music is making is warding off or scaring away these evil beings.
Thank you, Dr. Garroway, for such a fascinating talk. I am having one of those moments where I'm thinking she has to be right. Some problems that she's seen and provided a solution to. And now the next thing I have to know is, from a historiographic standpoint, what were the factors that went into everybody getting it wrong? Like, what the inattention to children? Where did that come from?
Well, the inattention to children, I guess we could sit here for a while and talk about that. So I'll try and do the standing on one foot. When archaeological sites, so there's a great biblical archaeology review article by Carol Myers that came out in, I don't know, the mid 2000s. So if you're on Zoom camera and you're watching this, you want to look that up, I would point that out to you, where she talks, it's on her book, Rediscovering Eve, is what it's about. But I think she lays out this issue nicely for women. And then I'm going to pivot and take it one step further with children, which is that when archaeological excavations first started, the main goal was to go in and find the city and get the city plan, and then look for the palaces, and then look for the administration building, all of these big sorts of evidence of civilization and government, which also happens to be the male realm. And so when documents and when they found, like cuneiform libraries and such, this all went towards social institutions. So then in the 80s and 90s, when things started to pivot towards gender archaeology and looking towards the household, they started to concentrate on women. So then women get their own heyday, and they start talking about things that are related to the household. And so I would say that it's just taken this long. Like New World archaeology and in the Americas, they've been talking about children for at least 30 or 40 years. Archaeology in Europe has been talking about children for at least 25 years. Archaeology in classics as well for 20 years. And biblical studies, as it often is playing catch up, trying to, yeah. So I think that's the answer, that just we're finally here.
Dr. Garroway, thank you so much for joining us in Oklahoma City on this very cold day and bringing such wonderful topics for us to consider. And especially, I guess it connects in that we need to think about our children today. So if we're not thinking about our children today, then
That's right.
yeah, it all connects back.
And on the Passover Seder, you will now think of something different.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Thank you so very much.